Hi, my name's Joe Eyre. I'm a researcher with QAAFI. I'm working here on fall armyworm as a project that is a joint collaboration between DAF, the University of Queensland and GRDC. Fall armyworm is a caterpillar that is exotic to Australia. It comes from Central and Northern America. It escaped into Africa in around 2005 and has rapidly moved across from Africa through Asia, arriving in Australia in 2020. The economic threshold aims are to help farmers and land managers identify when and where to treat fall armyworm for a positive response. A lot of the really embedded thresholds are based off this damage that you see, a proportion of the canopy that's destroyed. But what we know is that when you actually see this kind of destruction, the fall armyworm may have left by now. The damage is actually done inside the whorl when they're small. And when they're small, they're easiest to treat. So we need to be able to predict from a number of larvae at a critical growth stage what the likely yield loss is going to be from not treating that infestation. It has a preference for maize, but as you can see, we are actually starting to see a significant amount of damage in sorghum. This is the first trial here at Gatton on sorghum, and we are yet to understand how this level of damage translates to a yield impact. This project has got another year to go. We've already got a number of other sites data, and we're looking to establish that relationship between timing of infestation, the density of infestation, and by timing I mean the timing relative to the development of the crop.
Dr. Melina Miles, entomologist with the Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. Well, I think that having a good understanding of a visual interpretation of what growers and agronomists see in the field, how much damage they're seeing, exactly what that means in terms of subsequent crop growth rates and yield is absolutely imperative. Well, for those who grow in the north, where fall armyworm pressure is high and persistent, it's a major problem. So in 2020, before we had a really good understanding of what they needed to do to prevent crop loss, there's a lot of crop loss. Now there's been a sort of almost immediate shift to planting crops early before the fall armyworm populations get very high and very damaging and persistent in the season. So that means spring planting for most maize growers, I guess, rather than a sort of December, January planting. So that's been a major shift already, but for those that, particularly in dryland system where they might not have a choice about when they plant, late season planting may be inevitable. They need to have a way of managing that because they just simply can't avoid it in time. Well, I think this is the beauty of having the opportunity of working with Joe, is that, traditionally that's what we've done. We've sort of, described the relationship between the crop, the pest impact as a sort of overall outcome, and we haven't taken into account the crop physiology. And so if you're growing a crop in Atherton in North Queensland, or you're growing a crop in the Murrumbidgee, we wouldn't have made any differentiation about how you might manage those. Most of our major invertebrate pests damage the grain, the flower, the sort of reproductive parts, and that's quite a simple equation because there's not a lot of crop compensation to be had then. But for fall armyworm, that is a really, its major impact appears to be in the defoliating of the vegetative stage. It's a really different proposition, and I think without Joe's input and the APSIM model, we would have really struggled to resolve this issue.